I would like to tell you a story about Grzegorz Przemyk, who was a boy around our age. He was 18, has just graduated from high school, and he was entering the adulthood when he was murdered by the officers of Civil's militia in the year 1983. His death affected many people, and his funeral became the massive demonstration against the communist authority in Poland. His life in short, some basic information about him. He was born on May 17th of the year 1964 in Warsaw as son of Leopold Przemyk, who was an engineer, and Barbara Sadowska, who was a poet, and she was also an opposition activist, which definitely contributed to raising her son in the environment where important were freedom and democracy. Grzegorz himself was writing poetry, and many people thought he was very talented. And as I said before, he graduated from high school and passed his maturity exam, which are the final exams at the end of school in Poland. And in the 1983, he celebrated the good result of this exam with his friends in the old town in Warsaw. And this celebration became the beginning of the tragic events that happened at the end of his life. The boys had caught the attention of the officers of Civil's militia, who told them to show their documents. Since Grzegorz didn't have them with himself, he was arrested and taken to the militia station. He was brutally beaten there, and he got several hits in the abdomen, and when the situation got really bad, the officers called the medics. Then at the hospital, it became clear that Grzegorz had very little chance to survive, and he died 2 years later as the consequence of severe internal injuries. Thousands of people attended his funeral, and the funeral mass was held on May 19th in the year 1983 by the priest Jerzy Popiełuszko. It became a huge demonstration against the communist authority. People held posters with politics slogan, which were focusing on introducing democracy. In this way, his funeral became one of the greatest demonstrations against the communist authority since the introduction of martial law in Poland. As for the judicial procedures, the authorities had tried everything in order to save the officers who were guilty of Przemyk's death from being sentenced. That actually worked for a very long time. At the beginning, the whole blame was put on the medics who came to rescue Grzegorz. Under many threats to them and their families, in the arranged process they were made to admit that they had done it. As a result of false testimonies, officers who were actually responsible for his crime, and those were Ireneusz Kościuk and Arkadiusz Dynkiewicz, they were released without charges. After 1989, the time where the Communist Party stopped governing in Poland, people demanded to come back to the cases of former militia officers, and Kazimierz Otłowski was found guilty of changing the testimonies of the witnesses, but he was set free. Arkadiusz Dynkiewicz was sentenced to 2 years of prison, but he didn't spend there even a day, since the psychiatrist said that he's unable to serve his time, considering his mental condition. Ireneusz Kościuk had several trials. The last one took place in 2008, and he was sentenced to 4 years, but he also avoided being in prison since the case became invalid by the lapse of time. Grzegorz Przemyk was not the only young person who was tortured, but officially died in unsolved circumstances. Unfortunately, there were many cases like this one. In September 2021, there was released a movie, which was directed by Jan Matuszyński, called Leave No Traces, and those were the exact words said by Arkadiusz Dynkiewicz, who ordered the officers to beat Grzegorz. And here is the trailer of this movie.
Wydaje mi się, że mamy drobny kłopot natury wizerunkowej, związany ze sprawą niejakiego Grzegorza Przemyka.
Towarzysze, pozwolę sobie zaznaczyć, że mój resort jest niewinny.
Jest świadek.
Jerzy Popiel jest jedyną przeszkodą stojącą nam na drodze do uczciwego i rzetelnego wyjaśnienia tej sprawy.
Jurek,
Musisz się ukryć.
Operacja Junior, do której zostaliście oddelegowani, ma na celu zniwelowanie tej przeszkody.
Zatłukli go na moich oczach i tyle. W korytarzu upadł od razu, oni podnieśli go dalej, go bili.
Czy możliwe, żeby te obrażenia powstały wcześniej? Od upadku, przypadkowego ciosu?
Pamiętasz, Michał, na co się umawialiśmy? Znasz scenariusz? Nie zepsuj tego tym razem.
Oni próbują mu kręcić w sprawie łeb, to jest wszystko kłamstwo.
To dzięki wam się ta rodzina zaczęła sypać. To teraz trzeba to dokończyć.
Syn został pobity. Sprawiedliwość będzie tylko, jeśli przeżyjesz.
Nie można się dogadać? Żyć normalnie?
Chodzi o to, żebyś kogoś nie skrzywdził tymi swoimi zeznaniami.
Głupio, żeście to towarzysze rozegrali. Sami żeście tego chłopaka stworzyli. To sami sobie teraz z tym radźcie.